Good evening, friends. Please bear with us only for 5 minutes. Justice Ravindra is on the way and we are going to start the program within 5 to 7 minutes. Thank you. Good evening, all of you. We are here for the Juvenile Justice System Annual Festival of Preface. Honorable Justice Ravindra is here with us. Honorable Justice Shakdher is also with us. I will request Mr. P.I. our Secretary, and Mr. K.S. Bhat, Dr. K.S. Bhat, kindly come on the dais and please help the honorable judges to the dais.
It's okay, it's okay.
Request other members also to kindly join on the dais. Dr. K.S. Bhat, Ms. Soledad Herrero. She is the Chief of Child Protection, Unicef India, Office Staff of Special Commissioner of Police. He will be joining us very soon. I am here to inform you that Mr. VIJAY will not be able to join us due to the sad demise of his mother yesterday. And I will request everybody to observe 2 minutes silence for her prayers, please.
Thank you.
Good evening. I would like to extend my warm welcome to Honorable Mr. Justice S. Ravindra Bhat, Chairperson of Supreme Court Juvenile Justice Committee. I will also welcome guest of honor, Honorable Mr. Justice Rajiv Shakdher, Chairperson Delhi High Court Juvenile Justice Committee. Many thanks to Mr. Priyank Kanoongo, Chairperson NPSC and CPC of Child Rights. We have also with us Ms. Soledad Herrero, Chief of Child Protection, Unicef India, Office Staff of Special Commissioner of Police, Dictionary, and I will also request. Now we have distinguished guests, member of VC, SCORA, members of the bar, friends, and all the relevant galaxy of eminent persons who are present today. and also to many of our esteemed members who are digitally connected to us. Thank you so much for joining us for our program. Legal Assistance Forum is an association with Mohan Law House. Welcome you on the occasion of the release of the manual Stakeholders Juvenile Justice System. It gives us immense pleasure to come up with our third edition of the book, since first and second edition was found useful by the stakeholders of the juvenile justice system. The stakeholders, that is JJP, probation officers, special juvenile police units, observation homes, who have been using the book while functioning under the Act. It is combined effort of many LAF members in association with Unicef, who had evolved a monitoring mechanism to strengthen the information system and monitor effectively the function of juvenile system. It was the second edition which had come earlier, and now this manual was emphasized and promised to update a training material with new chapters dedicated to functions of Child Welfare Committee, Children's Court, and district magistrates within JJ system, on habitation of children through the adoption process, and empower various stakeholders within JJ system. This book has been edited by Mr. VIJAY HANSARIA, and it is informed that Mr. VIJAY HANSARIA, he although he is not here, but he is support and mentorship, and he is there to guide us all the time. He is the LF president. Mr. VIJAY HANSARIA is a senior advocate practicing in the Supreme Court of India for last 30 years. He had been, apart from a well-known legal luminary, he has authored other books also. For the preparation of the manual, and our members and associates visited and interacted with many principal magistrates and members of the Juvenile Justice Board, staff of juvenile homes, police officers, children in conflict. We also organized many workshops and organized seminars in different states, which are attended by the stakeholders. I will request Dr. Csr Bhat now to kindly give the welcome address. He is the working president of Legal Assistance Forum. He is also a professor and a dean in St. Thomas College, Noida. I will welcome Dr. Csr Bhat to kindly give the welcome address.
Good evening to all. On behalf of Mr. VIJAY HANSARIA, the President of Legal Assistance Forum, and all the Managing Committee members of the Legal Assistance Forum, and our publishing partner, Mohan Law House, I extend a very hearty welcome to our chief guest, our guest of honor, and all the esteemed members of this august audience. The Honorable Chief Guest, Mr. Justice S. Ravindra Bhat, Chairperson of Supreme Juvenile Justice Committee. The Honorable Guest of Honor, Mr. Justice Rajiv Shakdher, Chairperson for Protection of Child Rights. Guest of Honor, Ms. Soledad Herrero, Chief of Child Protection, Unicef, India. And our guest, Mr. Mukesh Meena, IPS, Special Police Commissioner, if he is here, and all the distinguished guests. It's our great privilege to welcome the Honorable Chief Guest and the guests of honors here on this evening. This function has been little marred by the sudden passing away of the mother of Mr. VIJAY HANSARIA. Nevertheless, he was so stubborn that he did not want to postpone it. And so we are organizing this function under his mentorship and as per his wishes. As Dr. Ritu Bharadwaj has said, that he has really founded this organization with Mr. P.I. Jose and nurtured it, and today also he has dedicated himself for the cause of the juvenile justice system. We are also grateful to the Unicef. They have been our collaborators right from the beginning, and this is the third edition of the Juvenile Justice Manual brought out by the Legal Assistance Forum in collaboration with them. The first one was in 2010 with their cooperation and their assistance we had brought out, and it was revised in 2012. Legal Assistance Forum has been working for the juvenile justice system, and in that series of actions They have educated, they have trained the people from the juvenile justice boards and the members of the child welfare committees, for juvenile justice police units, and other bodies, those who are connected with the juvenile justice system. The manual is very close to our hearts, which took us 3 years to reach to this level, to this pilgrimage rather I should say, after very extensive research and visiting many juvenile homes and knowing the ground realities, how the juvenile justice system works in our country. We have found many loopholes in the implementation of the Judges Act, and we have tried to address those loopholes with our efforts, whatever was possible on our behalf. In this task, we have been very privileged to have the guidance of honorable judges of the Supreme Court, those who have demitted the offices now. Right from the beginning, we had the blessings and guidance of Justice Sada Shiv Patil, Justice Sada Shivam, Justice Ravindra, Justice B.N. Loko, Justice Deepak Gupta, Justice P.V. Reddy, and so many other judges of the Honorable Supreme Court. They have guided our affairs and they have really led to us to this level of functioning. And we are really very privileged that we have Honorable Mr. Justice Ravindra Bhat, who has been the pioneer, not only in this system, even the digital system of the also operations of the Supreme Court and the High Court, and similarly we are extremely privileged to have amongst us Honorable Mr. Justice Rajiv Shakdher, who is the Chairperson of the Juvenile Justice Committee. It's also our privilege that we have Shri Priyank Kanoongo, who has been looking after the affairs of the National Child Rights Commission in the country. And his contribution to the system, to the children's rights has been enormous. So it is our privilege that he is with us. We also especially mention the presence of Mr. Mukesh Meena. He will be reaching. So Mr. Mukesh Meena, who is instrumental to look after the affairs of the juvenile justice system in Delhi particularly. So we are awaiting his arrival. He should be joining us any time. I take this privilege to welcome each one of you. You have spared your valuable time to grace this event, and many teachers are there, many students are there from the Delhi University and from other institutions here, and all members of the Supreme Court Bar Association, the Supreme Court Advocate on Record Association, and the Delhi High Court Bar Association, and other bars of Delhi, they are here, so we heartily welcome them. So with these words, I again, on behalf of you all, on behalf of Mr. VIJAY HANSARIA and the Legal Assistance Forum, I extend a very hearty welcome to all of you and to our dignitaries on the dais. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. As sir has discussed about our things, that what we had gone through in all this journey, we all had been working for many years, to bring this manual. We had worked hard because we had gone to different states, we had filed writ petitions in different court, we had even taken assistance of different police departments and of different states, and there were many. We are very thankful that wherever we had gone, all the system, they had really helped us out, assisted us, and how we could take the real meaning of that what state has got what problem for himself with that part of the law, which is relevant to him or her conducts, legal awareness, advisory camps and seminars. We had gone even to the different states for different seminars, lok adalats in rural areas, inside jail premises. We organized many seminars and also the meetings with different officers of the different states. And finally, the LF had been involved to improve the justice delivery system, and we got success in the High Court also by winning the writ petitions in different courts. I will, now we have got our member who is also the Joint Secretary, Mr. Jayesh K. Unnithan. He is here to give the introduction of the book, what we had written this time or how it has come to the third edition. First and second edition we had already seen, and now the what is the changes and what is the difference, he will be telling us about it. Thank you.
Good evening to all, respected guests in the dais and dignitaries of the dais and my dear friends. This book, like I am here to introduce the book. So introducing a book means it should be like an appetizer. I should only tell what the contents of the book, and I should make efforts so that you will read the book, and it will be a good feast of thought. That's what I can tell in the beginning. This book is the third edition of our manual, and it includes the 2021 amendment that has been made in the Juvenile Justice Act. That's the first thing. Then secondly, this book is like, as Dr. Ritu was telling, this is in fact a work of labor. Like, we involved ourselves in the ground level, we interacted with stakeholders, we conducted seminars, we took feedbacks, and this book is in fact a outcome of all those efforts that we took. So it chronicles the best practices that is to be forwarded, what is to be done by all stakeholders in the best interest of the child. Best interest of the child is the legislative intent of the act and the rules. So that is what the book is, the book is for. And fortunately, this book has been accepted as a training manual across the country by various stakeholders, including the Social Welfare Department and even the JJ boards. And the new edition, that is, which has been a new feature of this book, is including the concept of this child who are required for care and protection. The second, other than the child in conflict of law. So that aspect has been included in this book. Now, the Honorable Supreme Court says that the child is darling of the law. So this book is also has got the same point. It is an effort to reduce the gap between the letter of the law and the spirit of law as far as juvenile justice system is concerned. As I told you, I will try to give some glimpses of the book which may attract you to read it. Let me say first about the preface. Why? Preface of the first edition of the book. It says about the motive behind how we reached this concept of having this book. Mr. HANSARIA, senior advocate, who is the guiding spirit behind this movement, behind Legal Assistance Forum, and especially this juvenile justice system, in the intervention of Legal Assistance Forum in the juvenile justice system. He narrates an incident in the preface of the first edition. He says, while we were visiting the jails in Assam, especially the juvenile justice, the places where children are supposed to be kept, children in conflict of law are supposed to be kept, we found that they are kept with hardcore criminals. And many of them, even though they were given chances to go home, like even though they were decided to be left to their parents or relatives, many of them could not go home because they don't have money to reach, and their guardians don't have money to reach and take them. So these incidents we found, and that in fact worked as a Peter Marisburg experience for us. The same thing that happened to our father of the nation, who even though was a legitimate traveler in the train, and he was thrown out, and that made him transform from a commercial lawyer to a social reformer and an apostle of peace. So this was our Peter Marisburg point, dear friends, and we all were litigating lawyers. We are all still litigating lawyers, but that made us to think, this particular incident made us to think that this area requires intervention from people like us who are defining law, who are trying to help to declare law and to implement law also. That's the first aspect that I wanted to tell about the book. And the book focuses on the provisions of reform, rehabilitation, and social integration of both child in conflict with law and the new edition, child in care, for need for care and protection, which has been part of the new book. So new edition of the book. And it says about the role of functions of the Child Welfare Committee, Children's Court, and District Magistrates within juvenile justice system. They are explained in detail in each chapter of the book. The book has 15 chapters and a 16th chapter including the leading cases, compilation of the leading cases of all high courts and the Supreme Court. Then it is supported by updated case laws. The book is an outcome of various levels of interaction and brainstorming with all stakeholders, who has been explained in the cover page of the book, all stakeholders involved in the system, and attempts to reduce the gap between the letter and the spirit of the law. And I should say that when we started this journey, we got very great help from Unicef country. We selected couple of 3 states, in fact, in three states in the country to as pilot states to find out whether the manual that we have created has really value among the stakeholders. And we got feedbacks, and those feedbacks also helped us a lot. As far as judiciary is concerned, high courts were very supportive. The concept of juvenile justice committees in the high courts is a very proactive step, and we are fortunate here to have the chairman of the Juvenile Justice Committee of Delhi High Court here, and the chairman of the Juvenile Justice Committee of Supreme Court. Honorable Justice Ravindra Bhat has given an afterword to this book, because that is also highlight of the book which I wanted to mention. He concludes the concept, all the concepts that has been written in the book in his afterword very beautifully. That words of Honorable Justice Bhat reflects his commitments to the cause, and he has concised it in a very apt manner. So I thought that it would be the best way to express the gist of the book by quoting my Lordship's words in the afterword, and I quote, "This book serves as a complete working manual for juvenile system, for not only does it contain detailed research note on legislation, allied rules and case law, but also demystifies the regulatory framework and culls out core principles through elaborate flow charts which are weaved seamlessly into chapters, providing clarity to the reader. Most significantly, it captures the child-centric ethos of the Act and the approach that must shape further development of our juvenile justice systems." So this is a very ambitious project. The book is only a beginning. After the concept of the book is really inspiring the stakeholders to do a little more to really achieve the spirit of the law and the duty towards the children of this country. So with these words, I present the book before you. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Jayesh. As Jayesh has said, in-depth research in the states of Rajasthan, Kerala, Assam. We have been visiting juvenile justice boards, observation homes, special homes. We had organized seminars in those states to sensitize the stakeholders and create public opinion for effective implementation of Juvenile Justice Act 2000 as amended in 2006. On the basis of those observations and inputs received, this training manual for the stakeholders has been prepared by LAF. We have now Miss Sana, who is also an advocate, and although she is not practicing, but from last 18 years she is working in field of legal writing, research, training, etc. She has worked on various human rights issues like children, women, jail, inmates, laborers, domestic workers, etc. She is very passionate about using the power of law for those who are needed most, and currently associated with an organization named We the People. She is working towards empowering citizens to own, understand the practice and constitution of its values. She has been very helping hand because she has been the associate editor of the book, and she will be giving the editor's tip. I will request Ms. Sana to come on the stage and kindly tell us how you had reached to this point when you had.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share my experience while working with HANSARIA, sir. The entire book that we worked on was involved a lot of research and hard work. Mr. Jayesh has already shared what that book contains. I would not go much into the detail, but I would like to share that there's a flow to each chapter, and as you see that juvenile justice system, it's a manual for stakeholders. The entire, as we see, our juveniles are, there are hundreds of cases being filed every day. We really need a robust system to deal with such juveniles, and it's not about dealing with juveniles, but also considering their rights and taking it forward. So to have a robust system, it's not, the robust system doesn't mean just a good children's court or a judicial system, but it involves all the stakeholders that we have. So we have tried to put in all the different chapters for different stakeholders. There are chapters on what police is supposed to do, what institutions are supposed to do, how children welfare committees, juvenile justice boards, it has been divided stakeholder wise, and each chapter also has a flow to it. Like each chapter has all the important terminologies which may be needed while a particular stakeholder is going through that book. So what's the definition of those important words which are being referred again and again, and also then how the entire setup of that stakeholder is, how it impacts the rights of the juvenile. And it's not just the text, but to make it much easier, the entire what has been written has also been explained through very easy to understand charts and diagrams. That's a special part to it. And it's not just about the Juvenile Justice Act, it's also about the rules, about the SOPs, about many guidelines that are there, and which sometimes are just lie somewhere and are not being referred by different stakeholders. So putting everything together and making it a point that they know where a particular guideline or particular provision is there which they can use while they are dealing with the stakeholders. I really hope that this training manual is a resourceful piece and is referred to and used by people who are dealing with juveniles. And it's much more important because juveniles are so much in line, like we know, we deal with them, but children in conflict with law is a big section which also needs special attention. So the book also captures their rights, their provisions dealing with them. With this, I would like to conclude and hope that this book is a good resource for the people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sana. Now I'll request for the best part of the program, the book release. I will request Kavya and Aman and also ILF members kindly come for the book release. Thank you so much. And I will request Mr. P.I. Jules. He is the Secretary of LAF. He will be giving the opening address.
HANSARIA was supposed to deliver this address. As he is not present, I will say a few words. Most of the things which LAF should have said is already said by our people. I will not take any much time. Honorable Justice Bhat, Justice Shakta, Mr. Kanoongo, Ms. Herrero. LAF started its journey in 2005. As Jayesh mentioned, we reach the children not outside in the streets, but we reach the children in the jails. In Assam, we went for a legal log adalat program, and there when we had some extra time, we went to visit the inmates, and we saw so many children there. That took the turn of legal assistance for getting into these children's affairs. I'll not go into those details. First edition came in 2009 and 2010 beginning. Second edition came 2012. In between, we traveled across several states from Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Assam, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Uttarakhand. We traveled many of the states with support from Unicef, and we were able to do our little bit to the cause of the children. But post 2012, we are in 2022 when the third edition comes, there was some serious discussion on the direction of the juvenile justice system and the law in the country. Probably there was a question mark in the country itself, whether the principle, the fundamental principle that we adopt in the juvenile justice system, that best interest of the child, that should be the criteria. The entire book, if there is anything that we should say, that one principle should be the guiding one that while we work. When we started with that. But post 2012, we know a lot many things happened in our country, and there was a question mark on whether the best interest of the child is in the best interest of the society, because children from the younger age become serious, very heinous crimes being committed, and whether they should be left or whether they should be brought to law. All those issues came. So the confusion brought the amendments, both 2015 as well as 2021. Now we have a complete code in itself. There are two. One is the initial, the first introduction chapter given by Justice Deepak Gupta in this book. He says one word, the message, in his message. What he says is, any system is only as good as the people manning it. That's the one line that he tells. And that is really, really important in this system. And if the people manning the system, there should be something which on the basis of which they must be working. After long discussion in the country regarding the conflict between the best interest of the child and best interest of the society, probably now we can say it is settled that best interest of child still remains the cardinal principle for the juvenile justice system. And that you can get, as Jayesh mentioned, Justice Bhat has written the afterwards. He has clearly said about the principle still remains, though he doesn't, Justice Bhat doesn't raise the conflict that was traveling, but he says that it is still the principle to be the guiding principle for every stakeholder to work in the system. But I will conclude without mentioning much, but I need to read one paragraph from what Justice Bhat has written. Jayesh has read the main portion, what about the book, his opinion about it. The last para is actually, that is for LAF people. The last but one para, I take the privilege of reading that paragraph. Why I'm saying this is that there is a caution, there is a urgency which is being mentioned by Justice Bhat in that para, that I'll read it. Particularly, I'm sure just Mr. Kanoongo and Ms. Herrero, both of them should have seen this in the book. That's very crucial, because at this juncture, when the COVID-19 pandemic has created so much of problem in the country, the children, those who lost the parents, they are the real sufferers in the country. And you can't wait for another 1 year or 2 years to serve them. That is the urgency that Justice Bhat has mentioned. Let me just read that one paragraph and conclude. The impact of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has exposed numerous deficits in our care and protection systems and presents us with an opportunity to assess its functioning for the purpose of future reform. For instance, the unmitigated crisis faced by children who lost their parents was exposed in the mass-scale loss caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, which in turn highlighted numerous practical challenges in adoption procedures, both on paper and on ground. While the third edition emphasizes on rehabilitation of children through the adoption process, I, Justice Bhat, encourage readers to consider other concerns that have come to be highlighted in these unprecedented times and critically engage with how best these lacunae in law and procedure can be remedied with the children's best interest in mind. Now, this is an urgent call, an emergency call. Our national chairman is here. I hope with required seriousness and urgency that will be addressed. Unicef is the champion across the world. Everyone at Legal Assistance Forum, apart from Mr. HANSARIA, Ms. Neha Kalida, who is our treasurer, is also not present here because of some of the health reasons. So she also contributed and worked actively in this book. So our services are always our assistance at your disposal. But we need to address this. I request, please consider this point very seriously. The children, if they are left in the streets for longer period, it will become an irreversible or an irretrievable condition. So we must address those issues. I hope this book will help every stakeholder to continue their work in the best interest of the child.
The book has been published by Mohan Law House. I will speak just a little para about Mohan Law House. He's the publisher. He is based in New Delhi, and other offices are also in Pan India, London and Malaysia. Mohan Law House is the largest law books importers in Asia, and they have started the Indian reprints of practitioner books, academic journals in India to get available the things in less prices. Mohan Law House is the approved publisher from Library of Congress, Washington DC and British Library UK. We had recently seen Amani Ahuja also, who had come with Kavya, our youngest member of LAF, for the book release. They both were here with us. And now I will request Ms. Herrero, Chief of Child Protection, UNICEF India. She is a professional with 15 years of experience in the protection, humanitarian and development field, have worked with UNICEF, HCR and other organizations across a number of countries in Africa, Latin America, India and their headquarters in New York. I will request her to come on the day.
Honorable Mr. Justice Bhat, Supreme Court and Chair of the Juvenile Justice Committee, Honorable Justice Shakdher, Judge Delhi High Court, and also Chairperson of the Juvenile Justice Committee here in Delhi, Mr. Kanoongo, Chairperson of the National Commission for Protection of Children's Rights, PA Jose Secretary, and of course a very special wish for Mr. VIJAY and his family. Of course, our thoughts are with him. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and it's of course a tremendous privilege for UNICEF to have been supporting the Legal Assistance Forum, and huge congratulations for the team, and of course for all the dignitaries that have been engaged in this publication in one way or another. The first reflection I wanted to do, and of course a lot of ground has been already covered by other distinguished members, but maybe picking up where Josh left, I wanted to reflect collectively of the relevance of the manual, or the relevance rather of the topic of the manual, and maybe doing so from the perspective of a few figures of what is the situation of the children in the world and in India. If you're any of us, if any of us are a child in this world, we will have 3 out of 4 chances to suffer corporal punishment. We will have 1 out of 4 chances to live with mothers that are victims of domestic violence. And if we are girls, we will have 1 out of 5 chances to suffer sexual violence before we reach the age of 18. And those are global trends. The figures in India are also complex and not promising. We know that the data around child protection and violence issues is scarce, but it still is alarming enough to know and have a bit of a sense of pressure. The NHFSS data, the most relevant data and recent data, it still shows that at least 18% of the adolescent girls in the country will also experience violence. 23%, despite the progress, will be contracting marriage before the age of 18. And then if we look to statistics around online protection, something that, as we know very well, has been increasingly problematic in the context of COVID, with the increase of use of online devices as well as technologies, it is estimated that India produces more than 10% of the child sexual abuse materials in the world. Now, I'm saying this because we are not dealing, it must be about children, but we're not dealing with a minor thing. And it's not only because of the prevalence that I just described, it is also because the future of every nation lies in their children. So I just want to indeed endorse and put an emphasis on the importance of the collective efforts of all of us to really try to elevate the sense of prioritization and emergency that these issues require. Now, let's talk just briefly also around the systems to support this. The first thing to recognize is the tremendous efforts and progress that India has done in setting up legal and policy frameworks that are adequate to both respond to the situation of children that are in conflict with the law, as well as children that are in need on care and protection. And as Josh very well said, for a system to be effective, the system has to live up to the principle of the best interest of the child. Now, what does a system require to meet up and to live up to that standard? There are, in my view, 2 main issues that are required. The first thing is information, and the second thing is judgment. Information to really understand what is the situation surrounding the child. Is he orphan, or does he have extended family? Are there opportunities for him or her to live elsewhere? What is the context that perhaps push a child to become an offender? Why the child is in the streets? Is he really unaccompanied? Does he have a family? All that require a lot of resources. But perhaps even more important, it requires judgment, as I said. What is the best interest of the child? We will only be able to live up to that standard if the system that surrounds the implementation of policies and frameworks and the people that are behind it are adequately capacitated to take such complex judgments. The other reflection for a system to be effective, and this is also based on global evidence, is the importance of really living up to another principle that is also comprised in the Convention of the Rights of the Child, which is the principle of institutionalization as a measure of last resort. And there is a lot of evidence, but at least I can quote the Lancet Commission study of 2020 that shows that 80% of children in institutions will show cognitive and developmental problems below the normal levels. And there's been other studies that show as well how rapid improvements are observed when children are removed from institutions and placed in family environments. I want to make clear that it is not necessarily a problem of the institutions per se. Some of them are doing excellent work, but we need to consider that depriving children from kinship networks that are so essential for the development and advancement of societies will necessarily have an impact in the lives of these children. This has two basic implications. One is the need to support families that are vulnerable before that separation happens. And we, as child protection practitioners, we have key stakeholders in the room. We shouldn't wait until a child or a family is pushed to the brink or to a situation in which they cannot be care providers of a child anymore for the system to operate. And we should never allow a child to be institutionalized because of poverty. Of course, there will be situations where some of these children will end up needing alternative care systems because they come from abusive families or other contexts. And that's something that the system has to provide, and the system does provide. But still, there are other means and mechanisms, foster care, kinship care, and other adoption as well, that should be much more further explored. Of course, the country is on the process and is on this journey, and the Supreme Court Juvenile Justice Committees have really been a very strong advocate on this regard. But it's critically important that this is regarded. Mr. Jones was talking about the challenges of COVID. Those are undeniable, but maybe I want to give a little bit of a positive outlook today and also look at the opportunities. Because actually, in the context of COVID, there was a large effort towards the deinstitutionalization, and it was proven that deinstitutionalization is possible. Of course, there are problems, and it's very important for India, and actually the experience globally has been that if a post-care arrangement is not put in place, we will end up considering that deinstitutionalization is not the solution, but just because the structures in place for supporting those children are not there. NCPCR has been doing a great work supporting also the monitoring of the situation of these children, and we should really not drop the ball and take the opportunity of some of the good efforts that has been put in place in the context of COVID, seize the opportunity to really bring to scale some of these family-based settings. The last reflection that I think is important to make for a system to succeed is a clear delineation between what is the system that deals with children that are offenders and the system that deals with children that are in need of care and protection. And it's a very welcoming step also that this manual now incorporates fully all the dimension of the children in need of care and protection. This delineation is important because the system has to really know why it's acting. Is it acting because the child is really in need of care and protection, or because it committed an action that needs some reprehension? Yes, of course, in the justice surrounding a child that commits an offense, rehabilitation and reintegration should be the ultimate goal, but we cannot forget that it has also a punitive nature. And I'm saying this because a lot of times we do a disservice to the children by using and resorting to mechanisms of justice, including detention, wrongly understood because it is in the interest of the child, because the child comes from a poor economic background, because he doesn't have a family to stay. And I personally had a lot of experiences across the 4 continents that I work, where I've seen and I've talked to children that have been in observation homes or similars in detention centers, and have talked to functionaries that have reported that they have given a detention or a sentence of imprisonment because the child didn't have where to go, and similar situations with the police. We need to make this distinction. We need to realize that the justice system will always remain a space with certain level of punitive nature, even when, of course, other rehabilitation and restoration principles have to be there, and also to measure very well the implications of a child entering in contact with some of these systems that very likely will have some level of negative impact in the lives of the child. And I'll start concluding just to really hope that some of these reflections are of interest for this audience. To also hope that these reflections leave at least one consideration, which is that obviously the architecture of child protection is complex, and it is complex for the good reasons. It is complex because we are no more and no less that taking decisions that might actually decide whether a child is going to have a second chance in life or not. So the stakes are extremely high. And then, as earlier said, no matter how good the systems and processes are, if we don't have adequate capacities for those that are working around the children in need of care and protection, around providing justice for children, no matter how good the processes are, if we don't have capacities to adequately deal with the situations, we will still playing catch up, and the system will be flown. Still in the words from the Declaration of the Convention of the Rights of the I'm very confident that this manual and this effort will be an important contribution to make this vision reality. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is right, there are many difficulties, there are many stakeholders which are taking care, and this manual has emphasized and promises to update a training material with new chapters dedicated to functions of child welfare committees, children's court, and district magistrates within JJ system. On habitation of children, as you have said, it is also given in this manual through the adoption process and empower various stakeholders in the JJ system. We are trying, journey is on, and now I will welcome Mr. Priyank Kanoongo. He is the Chairperson of National Commission for Protection of Child Rights. Mr. Kanoongo is a science graduate. He comes from Madhya Pradesh. When he was appointed second time as a member of NCPCR, he was tasked with working in education. He had worked on the reintegration of out-of-school children into mainstream education. Kindly.
धन्यवाद। आज इस मैनुअल के लॉन्च कार्यक्रम में उपस्थित आदरणीय न्यायमूर्ति श्री रविंद्र भट्ट साहब, आदरणीय न्यायमूर्ति श्री राजीव शक्दर साहब, आदरणीय सोलेडाद हेरेरो जी, यूनिसेफ चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन स्पेशलिस्ट इन इंडिया, और यहाँ पर उपस्थित सभी गणमान्य जन, लीगल असिस्टेंस फोरम के सभी दायित्ववान कार्यकर्ता और पदाधिकारीगण। भारत में अगर हम उन बच्चों की बात करते हैं जो इन नीड ऑफ केयर एंड प्रोटेक्शन है, तो शुरुआत वहाँ से करनी होती है कि भारत का नाम जिस सम्राट भरत के नाम से रखा गया, वो एक अबेंडेंट चाइल्ड थे, और उनकी माँ और उनको जब उनके पिता ने त्याग दिया था, तब एक आश्रम में उनका प्रारंभिक लालन पालन हुआ। लेकिन ये भारत के सांस्कृतिक इथोस थे कि उनको उनके जो फंडामेंटल राइट्स थे या जो उनके जो भी लीगल राइट्स थे वो दिलवाने का काम उन ऋषि ने किया। आगे चल के वो बालक भारत का सम्राट बना, जिनके नाम पे भारत का नाम रखा गया। महात्मा गांधी ने 1931 में डिक्लेरेशन ऑफ चाइल्ड राइट्स पर साइन किए, जिसको 1959 में यूनाइटेड नेशंस ने अडॉप्ट किया। भारत का जो जुवेनाइल जस्टिस सिस्टम है वो हमारी सांस्कृतिक विरासत, मानवीय मूल्यों के उच्च मानदंड और वैश्विक बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस को मिलाकर बनाया गया है। जुवेनाइल जस्टिस एक्ट की जब हम बात करते हैं तो वो बच्चों को सुरक्षा और संरक्षा देने वाला दुनिया का सबसे बेहतरीन कानूनों में से एक कानून है। इसी प्रकार का पॉक्सो भी दुनिया के सबसे बेहतरीन कानूनों में से एक कानून हमारे पास है, जो बच्चों को न केवल उनकी संरक्षा एवं सुरक्षा के लिए एक वृहद आवरण देता है, बल्कि वो उनके खिलाफ होने वाले अपराधों पर सख्त दंड के प्रावधान भी करता है। भारत में बच्चों के खिलाफ होने वाले तमाम वायलेंस, तमाम हताशा, निराशा, दुश्वारियों के बावजूद मैं अपने लगातार 6 साल तक NCPCR में काम करते रहने के एक्सपीरियंसेस के बिना पर ये कह सकता हूँ कि भारत में कानून बनाने वाले जो 2 महत्वपूर्ण अंग हैं, न्यायपालिका और विधायिका, वो बहुत दयालु हैं बच्चों के प्रति। हम जब देखते हैं 2013 का पॉक्सो कानून या 2010, 2015 और फिर 2021, 3 बार जे एक्ट में बदलाव इतनी सहजता से हुए कि आज हम मैनुअल का ये 3rd वॉल्यूम देख रहे हो। मैं उम्मीद करता हूँ कि इसके रूल्स आ जाने के साथ साथ हम बहुत जल्दी 4th वॉल्यूम की तरफ भी चल पाएंगे। ये दर्शाता है कि भारत का सिस्टम बच्चों के प्रति होने वाले बदलावों को लेकर कानून में बदलाव करने के लिए कभी भी रिजिड नहीं है। और मैंने इस बात का साक्षी होने का अनुभव किया है कि किस प्रकार जे एक्ट के रिसेंट अमेंडमेंट्स को पक्ष और विपक्ष दोनों ने ही पार्लियामेंट में बड़े सहज भाव से स्वीकार किया। हमारे पास लेकिन चैलेंजेस जो हैं वो जाहिर है इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के लेवल पे हैं, काफ़ी सारे हैं। ऑब्जर्वेशन होम्स उनमें से एक बड़ा एरिया है जिन पर काम करने की आवश्यकता है। देश में 40,000 बच्चे हर साल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट विथ लॉ होते हैं। मैं आपको बताना चाहूँगा, दिल्ली के एक ऑब्जर्वेशन होम में हम एक क्रिकेटर को लेकर गए थे बच्चों से मिलवाने के लिए। वो क्रिकेटर अभी MP हैं। उन क्रिकेटर ने बच्चों से जब इंटरेक्ट किया, एक बच्चे ने उनसे बोला कि आप मेरे साथ क्रिकेट खेलिए। क्रिकेटर ने बोला कि आज मैं नहीं खेल पाऊँगा, मुझे कुछ इंगेजमेंट्स हैं, अगली बार आऊँगा तब खेलूँगा। बच्चा तपाक से बोला, मैं 3 महीने में चला जाता हूँ, यहाँ पे आपको अगली दफ़ा नहीं मिलूँगा। हमने बाद में पता किया, वहाँ पे लगभग 60% बच्चे रिपीटेडली आ रहे थे। देश के अनेकों ऑब्जर्वेशन होम, स्पेशल होम और प्लेस ऑफ सेफ्टी एक ही कैंपस में है। रिसेंटली झारखंड में हमने एक ऐसा वाकया देखा जहाँ पर बच्चों को हर तरीके का सब्सटेंस ऑब्जर्वेशन होम के अंदर अवेलेबल था। जो प्लेस ऑफ सेफ्टी के बच्चे थे वो छोटे बच्चों के घरों पर फ़ोन करके रैंसम मांग रहे थे, पैसे मांग रहे थे। हमने देश के हर भाग में ये चीज़ें ऑब्जर्वेशन होम्स के अंदर देखी। क्या हम उस तरफ बढ़ सकते हैं कि देश के सभी ऑब्जर्वेशन होम, ज़्यादा नहीं है, 300 के आसपास है, एक बहुत अच्छी रेसिडेंशियल एजुकेशनल फैसिलिटी में तब्दील हो सके? हमको उस तरफ सोचना होगा, आगे बढ़ना होगा। पॉक्सो को लेकर के जो कमीशन का ऑब्जर्वेशन है लगातार, वो बच्चों की एज को लेकर 2002 में भारत में समग्र शिक्षा अभियान, सर्व शिक्षा अभियान की शुरुआत हुई। 2003 के बाद से जो भी बच्चे स्कूलों में गए हैं उनका यूडाइस पे एंट्री है, उनकी डेट ऑफ बर्थ वहाँ एंटर है, जो सरकार का एक सिस्टम है। बच्चों को 3-4 बार एज वेरिफिकेशन के लिए अलग अलग डॉक्यूमेंट्स देने पड़ते हैं। वो जो विक्टिम हैं उनको बोन ओसिफिकेशन टेस्ट से गुजरना पड़ता है और बहुत सारे केसेस ऐसे हैं जहां ये बच्चे न्याय नहीं पा रहे हैं। तो इस तरफ भी हम लोगों को उन स्टूडेंट्स की मदद की ज़रूरत है। जब बच्चे विक्टिम होकर सिस्टम में आते हैं तब स्टूडेंट्स अगर उनकी मदद कर सकें, पुलिस के साथ मदद कर सकें, बच्चों को लीगल एड दे सकें। लॉ स्टूडेंट्स से ये अपेक्षा देश भर में की जाती है, अगर वो अपना कुछ वक्त निकालेंगे इन बच्चों के लिए, उनको लॉ कॉलेजेस या यूनिवर्सिटीज़ प्रोजेक्ट वर्क की तरह या फील्ड वर्क की तरह या इंटर्नशिप की तरह कैसे कंसिडर कर सकती हैं, इसको आगे देखने की अभी गुंजाइश की आवश्यकता है। हमने ये भी देखा, जैसे सोल्डेड अभी बता रही थी, देश में कोविड आने के ठीक पहले जब हमने सारे चिल्ड्रन होम्स का सोशल ऑडिट किया, स्वतंत्र और परतंत्र भारत में पहली बार ये सोशल ऑडिट सारे होम्स का हुआ। देश के चिल्ड्रन होम में रहने वाले बच्चों में से 70% बच्चे केवल 6 राज्यों में थे, दक्षिण भारत के 5 राज्य और महाराष्ट्र में। हमने जब उन स्टेट से गुजारिश की कि भाई कोविड का टाइम है, इन बच्चों को अगर फैमिलीज़ के साथ रिस्टोर किया जा सकता है तो उस पर हमको विचार करना चाहिए। 1,45,000 बच्चे अपने घर को जा पाए। तो ये हो सकता है जैसा सोल्डेड ने भी बताया, लेकिन हमको इस तरफ आगे बढ़ना होगा। ये वो बच्चे थे जिनके पेरेंट्स थे, जिनकी फैमिलीज थी, पॉवर्टी के कारण वो चिल्ड्रन होम्स में थे। हम बहुत सारी मैचिंग स्कीम्स के थ्रू उनकी फैमिलीज़ को स्ट्रेंथन कर सकते हैं। अभी मध्य प्रदेश से जो ऑनरेबल जुवेनाइल जस्टिस कमेटी है, उन्होंने जो अलग अलग फाइन्स का पैसा कोर्ट्स के पास आ रहा था वो इन बच्चों को प्राइवेट स्पॉन्सरशिप की तरह दिलवाना शुरू किया। 1700 बच्चे उससे लाभान्वित हो रहे हैं, उनको घर पे पैसे मिल रहे हैं, जिस कारण वो चिल्ड्रन होम्स में ना रह के घरों पे रह पा रहे हैं। कोविड वाली बात आपने कही थी, बस मैं आखिर में उसको ख़त्म करूँगा। जो सिस्टम ऑनरेबल सुप्रीम कोर्ट की निगरानी में भारत में बन पाया है, मेरी समझ में दुनिया में वो अनूठा है। अप्रैल 2020 के बाद से वो हर बच्चा जो ऑर्फन हुआ है या वो हर बच्चा जो घर के किसी एक सदस्य की मौत के कारण CNCP की कैटेगरी में आया है, उसकी इन्फॉर्मेशन एक पोर्टल पे दर्ज होती है। वो पोर्टल 6 स्टेप्स में उसकी केयर एंड प्रोटेक्शन को इंश्योर करने के लिए सारी इन्फॉर्मेशन को कैप्चर करता है। उसमें उसका सोशल इन्वेस्टिगेशन, इंडिविजुअल केयर प्लान, लिंकिंग विद स्कीम्स, एडॉप्शन की प्रोसेस, उसका लीगली फ्री फॉर एडॉप्शन होना, ये सभी हम लोग हर महीने न्यायालय को भी अवगत कराते हैं और स्टेट्स के साथ इसको रेगुलर मॉनिटर भी करते हैं। लेकिन मैं ये कह सकता हूँ कि हम बहुत ही प्रिलिमिनरी स्टेजेस में हैं। जिन स्कीम्स का फ़ायदा हम जितने बच्चों को दिलवाने की कोशिश कर पा रहे हैं वो सभी एक जगह दर्ज हो रहा है और सेंट्रली मॉनिटर होने की तरफ हम बढ़ सकें। स्ट्रीट चिल्ड्रन को लेकर भी सिमिलरली ये पोर्टल, जिसका नाम बाल स्वराज है, जो कि इस भाव के साथ तैयार किया गया है कि गांधी जी के सपनों का स्वराज बच्चों के हक में भी उतने ही आए, बच्चों का भी स्वराज पे उतना अधिकार हो पाए। वो अभी तक 16,000 स्ट्रीट चिल्ड्रंस के रेस्क्यू एंड रिहेबिलिटेशन को मॉनिटर और ट्रैक करने का काम कर रहा है। मैं उम्मीद करता हूँ कि आप सभी के लगातार मदद से, सहयोग से हम इस तरफ आगे बढ़ पाएंगे। 3rd एडिशन के प्रकाशन के लिए आपको बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं और 4th एडिशन का बेसब्री से हम सभी को इंतज़ार रहेगा। थैंक यू सो मच।
Thank you, Mr. Kanoongo. And as you said about those, that how we can help and assist such system, we had been doing from last almost 10 years the same. We had been going to different observation homes and also to the jails, and we were looking into the problems of these children. And with the system, we had tried our best to reach to the conclusion how these children can be helped. And in such time of the COVID, again the journey is on. We are trying, and many NGOs, they are coming ahead. We are also trying our best to do and proceed ahead. And this manual is going to assist all our stakeholders for this. Now we have Honorable Mr. Justice Rajiv Shakdher, who is the Chairperson of Delhi High Court Juvenile Justice Committee. Sir was born on 19th October 1962. He practiced in Supreme Court of India, High Court of Delhi, and other High Courts of India also. He was appointed as an additional judge of Delhi High Court on 11th April 2008 and became permanent judge on 17th October 2011. he was transferred to, although for the short time, he was transferred to Madras High Court, but again he joined us in Delhi High Court on 15th of January 2018. Sir has been enlightening us and he has been a status in the system. I will call and I will request Honorable Mr. Justice Rajiv Shakdher for the address.
Yeah, I think we've all overshot time, so I will keep it very simple and not get into technical details. Honorable Mr. Justice Ravindra Bhat, Ms. Herrero, Mr. Kanoongo, Dr. K.S. Bhati, Dr. Ritu Bhardwaj, Mr. P.I. Jose, Mr. J.S. K.U., Ms. Sana Siddiqui. Good evening to all of you. One of the advantages of being a guest of honor at any function is you get 2 books, one to review and one when you release the book. So I have been beneficiary of 2 books, but I'm going to donate one to the library because it's an outstanding book which has been organized very, very thoughtfully. If any of you take out the time to look at the book, you'll realize that it's been divided into chapters. The first say about dozen chapters really deal with what are the basic foundational principles of this entire juvenile justice system as to how it works, and one of them, the core principle, being the best interest of children. Why I am emphasizing on this aspect is today I see a lot of people here and I sincerely hope these are those people who have the best interest of children in their hearts, because no system can work, especially when you deal with children, when you really love children per se. And I have no reason to believe that you are here for any other reason, notwithstanding this fact that sitting judges are here. That goes especially for lawyers. But there are a couple of points. There are several things that one can sort of touch upon, talk about. Ms. Herrero, Mr. Priyank, Justice Bhat, myself, and now I have met some more friends who've been working on this entire system dealing with children. So there are several issues that one could speak about, but there are a couple of 4 broad points that I want to bring to your notice. When you look at children, what comes to your mind? If you ask a man with compassion in his heart, the first thing that comes to his mind is, this is a charitable cause, I must help children. That, and I'm breaking it down into lay terms, that is a wrong approach. Why do I say that? And that's where we as lawyers need to imbibe this and pass it on to the society. It is a right-based system. Children, like an adult, has rights. The rights are provided in the Act, which is the Juvenile Justice Act, and more so the right is in the Constitution. So when we do something for children, the motivation can be anything, because you need to have essentially a good heart, compassion, everything is there. That goes for judges, that goes for lawyers, that goes for anyone who works in a public area. But you must realize what they are asking for is their right. Now, once you have that in your, जिसे कहते हैं ज़हन में हो, तो everything falls into place. And when you go to court, you agitate for their rights. So the government is not giving you largesse, the state is not giving you largesse, it is their entitlement. Actually, the breakdown begins at home. I'll tell you how. And all of us have, because one of the wonderful things about meeting like this is that we all evolve as human beings. When I didn't do juvenile justice matters, or I didn't helm the Juvenile Justice Committee, there were certain, let's say, impressions that I had, which over a period of time got refined. So when you're at home, and if you have a child, it starts at home. It's the easiest thing you do is to tamp down on a child. If a child argues, and if he's slightly younger, at teens they argue back, so there is a problem. But where they're about 6-7 year old, and you tell them, son, or if it's a daughter or whoever, darling, you don't know what it is all about. I know best. The ability to listen to the child is important. Because if you don't listen to a child, you will never be able to secure from him what the child wants. Now, as an elder in the house, you will be able to guide the child. You will say, okay, these are your options, but I think this is the best option. Why don't you choose? If you start doing that in your house, that change in personality will transcend and you will let others learn from you, which is something that we don't do. So, if you have an argument with a child, and I think we've gone through that, our generation has, and I see some who are senior to me, it's always easier to tamp down a child. In fact, some of us have been, trampled by our parents and nothing was thought of it. Or even by our teachers. I mean, I was studying in a school where caning was, quite all right. Boys had to be caned and girls had to be dealt, delicately. So the argument is, but that has changed. The argument has been, well, we are not worse off because we were caned. But that has changed. Over a period of time, people have realized corporal punishment is not the way to go about it. Some children are tougher. They go through life, caned or not caned. They still, come up trumps. Some get mentally affected, and that really degrades his personality. Some feel so humiliated that they are not able to do what, is laid out for them in life because of the humiliation that they suffer amongst their classmates. So that's one important thing that I think, both as a parent, as an adult, we should bear in mind when we interact with children. And, not tamp them down or use, sort of slap them and say, listen, or, spank them, and this is all right, this is not all right. That's what you must tell your friends, you must tell your relatives, you must tell yourself. So, according to me, it should be a right-based system, not a welfare-based system. Don't treat them as charity cause or a charity case, which is what we do. Second, the second important thing is what happened in the last 2.5 years. COVID hit us, and it was unexpected. It happened all over the world. But children who were the worst sufferers of COVID-19. And this is something that I'm telling you out of my own experience because, again, I got an opportunity to look at it very closely because I was heading the JJ system. One of the NGOs, because we interact with NGOs, no. Why? For a simple reason that you need outside your court system people to tell you what is happening. Sometimes NGOs are looked at very dimly. According to me, NGOs or any other stakeholder is a very important sentinel in the system because they tell you what is wrong at the ground level. So what we were told by one of the NGOs is, so this is all very well that because of COVID-19 you are, your JJB magistrates are giving them bail and letting them out. The problem is when they go home because of this complete lockdown, they don't have anything to eat at home. And parents therefore want to keep them locked up in the institutions. Why? At least they are getting 2 square meals and one mouth is less because they have children at their house. What do we do? So when this came to our notice, we immediately asked the Delhi government. We said, Department for Child and Welfare, what is it that you can do for them? And the discussion and debate led to a situation where we decided to give every child when he goes back 1,500 rupees. The parent, so that it's not much because the state's resources are less. We gave them 1,500 rupees and also some dry ration so that they could take it with them. A good, let's say, initiative got replicated in other states because this spreads. Like we learn from other states as to what is the good work they are doing. The NGOs spread the word and said, Delhi is doing this, why don't you replicate it? It quickly got replicated. And this is something that worked. So the point that I am trying to make here is that when COVID-19 hit us, we had to almost forge a plan for securing the rights of children as we went along. That is not a good outcome. Today it was COVID-19, tomorrow it could be famine, Day after, it could be war. It could be an earthquake. We need to have a disaster management plan for the children. And since Mr. Kanoongo is here as the head of NCPCR, a protocol should be laid down for children when such disasters, natural or man-made, happen. We shouldn't wait for a disaster to happen and then have a protocol or a management plan. So what we did here was, and this is here when again, somehow, well, sometimes we are castigated of going too much into areas where we shouldn't be going. But when that burden is put on the judiciary, there is no other way, because citizens do come to us. So Justice Bhat got into the act, and he convened a subcommittee which comprised of 3 judges, and he said, listen, we are having at this juncture children who are orphaned, who are abandoned and surrendered. What do we do about it? We need a protocol. So when we were tasked with this job, we got domain experts from all over. I mean, not from Delhi, because unfortunately sometimes it's always thought that Delhi is the center of the universe. It isn't. Our children live all around, and their problems are far more different, and their circumstances are far more difficult than what you see in Delhi. Delhi is bad, and some of the areas, if you go to Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and other areas, and Mr. Kanoongo just referred to one of them, they are awful. So we got domain experts from all these other areas. We told them, you give us ideas. A protocol was prepared under the leadership of Justice Bhat, and that protocol is, according to me, a robust document which can be rolled out across the country. And I would urge Mr. Kanoongo to have a look at it. Justice Bhat has in fact, we convened a committee, we worked on it, and Justice Bhat is, I think, still wanting to get, it's been circulated, and something that they should look at. And if we can have a disaster management plan for the children, I'm sure Unicef will be more than happy to help in something like this. It would be fantastic for our children over here. I don't want to go into the facts and figures that we are getting late, but Mr. Kanoongo has filed an affidavit. There were 30,000 children, more than 30,000 children who were either orphans, abandoned or surrendered. What we don't realize is, during this COVID, there are a lot of children that stayed confined with their abusers. They were abused sexually, but there was no outlet. Now, if you don't have a protocol where the system goes to the child, you will never get to know. Unfortunately, in India, what is happening is, and this is something that has bothered me all along, and this is again something that I'm bringing to NCPCR, and I will also share it with the Delhi Commission for Child Rights, is that there should be an outreach to the children by the system and not the other way around. I mean, someone brings the child to the police station, then the system gets triggered. No, that's not the way of doing it. Once there is a signal, someone flags it, that person, probation officer, should go to the child, find out what is the circumstances. For example, the child is orphaned in COVID. Both his parents have died. They've got a lot of assets. They've got bank balances. How do you get to operate them? You have to have a guardian. You have to have someone in law who will move those applications, take the help of learned counsels, and do what is to be done for that child and secure his interest. So that is something that you could bear in mind. Third, I know I am taking a little longer. The resource gap. The state does not have enough funds. That's an accepted situation. This has happened over years. Another idea which you need to translate, I don't know how, you can talk to the government, is to take the CSR route. Private sector is willing to step in, provided you give them the necessary tax breaks and the rebate. If you get a whole lot of money, say for Delhi, when you go to homes there, they're good, concrete, etc., but they look sad places. You need infrastructure, you need, in the building, in the complex, a little medical room, you need sports room, you need fields, equipment to play, because a lot of these children have a lot of potential even anger, which can only dissipate if you involve them in extracurricular activities. Everyone's not interested in sports, but you could have, Sania Mirza, if you train them. In fact, we had an initiative in Delhi where we got for sports a national level coach, football coach, to come and teach them there. But as judges, we have limitations of time. You need to roll this out in every home. You may find at least 4 or 5 people who have the potential in whichever sport. It could be football, it could be cricket, it could be tennis, it could be fine arts. That's one way of doing it. So you need a CSR route to get more money. Fines from courts are not good enough. In fact, we had to set up a drug de-addiction center. The state said, I don't have money to set up that center. From the fine that we collect as judges, we put in 5 lakh rupees. On the condition it will be given back to us to be used another time, but the money has never come back because the state says we don't have the resources to give it back to you. Whatever, there's some bureaucratic. So that's one way of doing it. Because if there is a CSR route, even people like us, instead of going to temples, which is a good thing, I'm not saying no, but you could also think of putting in money where children's causes are dealt with. Today you want to put in 500 rupees, you'll say, okay, it's my child's birthday, I'll put in 500 rupees in this fund. This fund will accumulate and this will be used for children's home. It's a fantastic thing according to me. Then the fourth is the amendment which was carried out in 2015, and this is something that I want to share with the audience, because when the 2015 Amendment Act happened, it was on the back of the Nirbhaya murder that happened. Everyone was shocked. The victim was brutalized. But there were 2 sides to the story. One was the victim, the other was one juvenile in the system. Now, I've said it on other forums also. I'll just briefly mention that this, according to our understanding, because we were part of the Juvenile Justice Committee, Justice Bhat at that time was in Delhi, we discovered when the magistrate wrote the report, contrary to what was being percolated in the press, his was not the pivotal role. I'm not saying that made it any less, but the public discourse changed. Now, it is not only in India that we've had these kind of crimes. I was just recently reading a report in Japan. One girl child was kept for 40 days by 3 children, and they continuously raped her, sexually abused her, she finally died, etc., etc. These things happen. They happen for a reason. We need to deal with the reasons. So the 2015 Act came, it inserted section 15, which divided the offences into petty, serious and heinous offences. There is a principle there that you need to, before you send the child to an adult jail, you need to know what is his mental capacity. Did he know the consequences? Did he know what were the circumstances of the offence? It's a very difficult ask for the magistrate to do this exercise. He can't do it because he's not a domain expert. He's not a psychiatrist. He doesn't have access to psychiatrists and psychologists. Therefore, the state needs to provide that, because if you need to work this particular provision to segregate those who need to go to the adult jail system and those who need to be kept in homes, this needs to be progressed in the way the law contemplates. It can't do it unless you have psychologists and psychiatrists. How we are going to do it is an open question, is something that they need to look at. But the more important thing is, and that is where we come back to the people who have gathered here and who have done this work and produced this beautiful book, which is a work, labor of love according to me, and that love started somewhere in 2012, if not earlier, is to do an impact assessment as to what happened after the 2015 Act came into force, and how did the system work when we segregated children between those who had to go to the adult jail and those who had to remain back. Unless you do that exercise, the legislators will never know as to whether this was a good idea or a bad idea. Legislatures always act post facto. They need to have inputs from the society to show them as to whether this works or this doesn't work. Something, again, as academics, as lawyers, as domain experts, you need to do this study to find out whether the legislation has had the desired
Contributors and editors of this, Ms. Herrero, Mr. Kanoongo, as well as Mr. Shakdher, Justice Shakdher, which is that we tend to see the Juvenile Justice Act as only a justice-centric enactment. No, it is actually a universe for children, a universe, a charter. To a large extent, it embodies the rights of the children. And that, together with the NCPCR and its charter, constitutes their rights. What Justice Shakdher pointed out is very relevant, that is loss of agency. When it comes to an adult can be seen, heard, and his reactions, his or her reactions are known, and appropriate action is taken, or appropriate cognizance is taken by the policy makers, by parliament or legislatures. But there are certain unseen sections of society. We often look, who are these often unseen sections? We call them marginalized. Of course, the marginalized in the traditional sense would be those who don't have a voice or dominant voice. Maybe in the ballot box they may have a voice, but they may not have a voice with the policy makers. And then we have other marginalized people who are what is known as invisible. We have people who have disabilities. But often in all this discourse, we forget that children are also invisible, in the sense that there is nobody among the children to advocate their cause. Yes, the phenomenon that we usually encounter and all of us to some extent are guilty of or have been victims of is being talked down to, decisions taken on our behalf, etc. But importantly, for all of us lawyers, we have to understand that this loss of agency. And in the case of juveniles with conflict, who are in conflict with law, the loss of agency is doubly more. Why? Because often they end up where they do due to another reason. Either it's a neglected or a violent home, or they are completely orphaned or something like that. So if that kind of empirical statistics are not available, what we see is the end result. And I think what Justice Shakdher said about one of the juveniles in the Nirbhaya case actually came out very starkly. We found that that particular child was from a very abused background. He himself had been abused during his childhood. So this phenomenon is what we as lawyers and policymakers should be acutely sensitive to. One, the background of the child who is in conflict with the law, and generally when we speak of children, the loss of agency. And when we talk of the universe of children, it is not just juveniles. Juveniles are a part of it, a small percentage. We are talking of children who need protection in the child care institutions, which Ms. Herrero mentioned. And Mr. Kanoongo's commission, recently, I think in 2018, they had the one of its kind child mapping exercise, which has given stark details. One thing which he mentioned, which I would like to elaborate, is that he said that about 5 states, and I think the figures given are 43% odd of the children in all the care institutions are in these 5 states. But a granular detail is that these are the best states who have these institutions. But if you come to other states, and I won't name those states, you don't have these institutions. And there are states where you don't have child welfare committees, you don't have observation homes, you don't have adoption agencies. So I'm just trying to paraphrase and summarize the report. That is the situation. So with that, I will come to this aspect of legal aid. I think this requires urgent attention. The Legal Service Authorities Act of 1987 mentions children as entitled to legal services. But the NALSA frameworks predominantly provide legal aid for the benefit of adults. The probation officers, who also doubles up as a legal cum social officer, assist the child in conflict with law with all social and legal matters. Noticing a lacuna in the Supreme Court in 2018 in a judgment, Sampurna Behara, directed that facilitation of implementation of statutory requirements is necessary. The court also suggested that the state legal services authorities may direct the district authorities to establish legal aid centers in juvenile justice boards and prepare a list of young panel lawyers who are willing to work in child-friendly manner in compliance with the spirit of legislation and the rules, and that the services be made available for legal aid in all child welfare committees. Now, just a small word about the child welfare committees. Just as in the case of courts, these child welfare committees really act as a gatekeeper for each child. Each child who is admitted to a child care institution, whether it's an orphanage or any other institution which is state run, and I'm not talking of juveniles in conflict with the law, they have to, an account has to be given. They have to be periodically produced. Now, this is a mammoth task, and it has to be, monitored. Now, who monitors these CWCs? How do they function? Well, it all depends. The mechanism that we have is the JJCs, and whichever government has got more resources or more is willing to deploy more resources can actually inspect them. Otherwise, the CWCs may go unmonitored. So much depends on the role of those who can go to these places periodically, and that is where perhaps even lawyers may play a critical role. And I would only supplement what Mr. Kanoongo said by saying that it should not be only law students, but even lawyers. And I will say this, I think Justice Shakdher, I remember when we were in the Juvenile Justice Committee together in Delhi, we had come out with a program where I think we had provided a retainer to lawyers, and there were some 15 or 20 lawyers who were on that panel who were getting a monthly retainer and who used to appear every day in these juvenile justice boards. So, well, that's one model. I don't say that it should be accepted universally or uniformly implemented. There could be other models, but it is absolutely necessary that this kind of social monitoring through lawyers and others who are interested in it should be undertaken. We collectively need to focus our energies on training and sensitization of not just the police and judicial officers, but also of these legal aid lawyers to ensure that they are well versed with the Act and the approach it takes towards protection of children and juveniles in conflict with law. Well-trained child welfare protection police officers and special juvenile police units appointed in each district would go a long way in aiding this process of sensitization. All of this is made significantly easier thanks to the comprehensive resources developed by the LAF in collaboration with the Unicef. Several of the guests invited today with whom I shared this dais are important stakeholders that I have and continue to work with in my capacity as chairman of the Supreme Court Juvenile Justice Committee. We have engaged on numerous levels with the intention of developing best practices and interventions that ensure effective implementation of the Act and its allied rules while keeping the interests of the child at the core. But while this is easy to speak of in an academic sense, which each speaker has previously underlined, within the closed walls of this conference room or other such events, the real challenge remains bridging the gap between protections offered by the law and its implementation by stakeholders of the system. This includes the police, probation officers, JJBs, child welfare committees, state governments, child care institutions, district magistrates, NGOs and advocates who really are the backbone of the system that can implement the protections offered by the law. Added to this is the need to increase capacity, infrastructure, manpower, training, and increased spending. Just a word on what Justice Shakdher said. While it is welcome that we go in for CSR, I am of a different opinion. If we say children are the future of this country, it is not enough to rely on the charity of some organization or companies. It is important that the way we sensitize our society, we have to sensitize our governments to open its purse and ensure that there is greater budgeting, there is greater spending. After all, what is the section of society we are looking at? If you look at prisons, for instance, we have 5 lakh prisoners in the entire country. I'm not making a comparison, But the child mapping experience which the NCPCR undertook mentions about 10 lakh children. Now, maybe it is more, it may be far more, I agree. But then surely we are not that poor that we can't open our purse strings to give to our children. At the end of it all, these are our children, and we claim from the rooftops that they are the future of our country. Then why should we go with a begging bowl? While that is always welcome, that's the point in which I differ from my friend Justice Shakdher. Repeatedly in our deliberations, that is the committees, the obstacle we encounter is the pressing need for accessible training in child-centric approach and availability of information which is suitable for such a diverse set of persons. This work, which is comprehensive, lucid and accessible, will, for these reasons, serve an immensely useful training understanding of the Act in its true sense. There is always something to be done as one progresses with experience, and the LAF deserves our commendation in this effort. I wish the work all success. There's only a small sting at the end. The only comment is about the pricing of the book, which should not be a barrier for its access. I hope you don't take it amiss. I congratulate the entire team once again and look forward to seeing this resource help the stakeholders meaningfully implement and strengthen our juvenile justice institutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I will now request our youngest research associate, Kavya, to present a report to Juvenile Justice Committee. I will also request Aman Ahuja to present a report to Honorable Mr. Justice S. Ravindra, Chairperson, Supreme Court Juvenile Justice Committee. Kindly both of you be here. I'll request Ms. Sana to present a report to Ms. Herrero. Ms. Sana. She's the associate editor of the book. I'll request Mr. Jayesh to present a report to Mr. Kanoongo. With great efforts, we all have contributed to the manual, in which we had our all members like Mr. P.I. Jose, who is the secretary, Mr. Anupam, Mr. Jayesh, myself, Sneha Kalita, who is not here, and Mr. K.S. Bhati, Dr. K.S. Bhati, who all have contributed chapters to the manual. Thank you so much for our team for the best efforts. Now, all remains to me is to request to our publisher that he is going to donate at least 4 books to SCBA. And I want everybody should give a clapping and applaud for this great act of faith. We are very thankful that SCBA is going to receive in libraries 4 books from your side. Thank you so much. I'll request Mr. Anupam Mishra. He is a joint treasurer of Legal Assistance Forum and also an advocate on record. Kindly come for vote of thanks.
Try to introduce some legal aid to the juveniles.
Honorable Mr. Justice S. Ravindra Bhat, Chairperson, Supreme Court Juvenile Justice Committee. Honorable Mr. Justice Rajiv Shakdher, and all other dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Mr. Justice Bhat, despite of having very important issue to attend tomorrow, apart from the busy court schedule of a miscellaneous day, was kind enough to be present here. We are grateful to you, sir. I, on behalf of all of us in Legal Assistance Forum and on behalf of Mohan Law House, extend our sincere thanks and gratitude. Your presence here shows the importance of the issue faced by the juvenile justice system in our country, and your kind word will help a large number of stakeholders to serve the children in a better way. Thank you, sir. Honorable Justice Rajiv Shakdher, Chairperson Delhi High Court Juvenile Justice Committee, was kind enough to not only to agree to be present here despite of the change of date, but has also helpful in many ways to reach out to all the stakeholders in Delhi. Your encouraging word and guidance will be a support for all of us present here, both physically as well as virtually on YouTube, to take active steps towards the welfare of the children. Thank you, sir. Respected Mr. Priyank Kanoongo, Chairperson, National Commission of Protection of Child Rights, we are extremely grateful to you for being present here despite of your busy schedule. I am sure you will guide all stakeholders coming in contact with you to make use of the book. Thank you, sir. Unicef have guided Legal Assistance Forum in all our effort in the juvenile justice field for the last 1 decade. The relation started by Mr. Soni Kutti George continues to be helpful. Mr. Muhammad Aftab and Ms. Tanishta Datta was kind enough to immediately process our request for the 3rd edition. Ms. Herrero, Chief of Child Protection, your every encouraging word and valuable inputs will help the children in India as well as the stakeholders to improve their functioning. I extend a special thanks on behalf of Legal Assistance Forum to all of you from UNICEF. Thank you very much, Ms. Herrero. Let me also inform all of you that Supreme Court Juvenile Justice Committee has requested all High Court Juvenile Justice Committee across the country to instruct all JJB members across the country to attend this function on YouTube. They all are watching and has taken benefit of guiding words of all these speakers. Before I conclude, let me take opportunity to say a special word of thanks to each and everyone who is present here. Thank you all.
I'll request all esteemed guests to join us for high tea. Let us join hands and work together for a more prosperous future and a new, fruitful and lawful century. Thank you so much, everyone. I will also request everybody that the prayer meet will be held at Multipurpose Hall, ISC, tomorrow 4 to 5 p.m. for Mr. VIJAY Hansaria's mother. Thank you.
I'll come there.
I'll also request LAF members to